lavish men's restroom of a high-end luxury hotel, an arrogant and racist hotel owner thought he could get away with humiliating an elderly black janitor, throwing insults and mockery her way without a second thought. But what he didn't realize was that Hollywood icon Johnny Depp was quietly sitting in one of the stalls, witnessing every word. What happened next? And how did this moment take an unexpected and unforgettable turn? Watch until the end to find out, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. The last mop buckets from the overnight shift were still draining as the day crew arrived at the prestigious Orchid Regency Hotel, their carts rolling across the gleaming marble floors with a rhythmic squeak. Among them was Elena Ellie Jackson, an elderly black woman whose graying hair and tired eyes couldn't quite hide the quiet strength and pride she carried. Pushing her cleaning cart down the plush hallway, she walked alongside her longtime colleague, Clara Mitchell, a younger white woman with a warm smile and an easygoing demeanor. As they entered their first assigned room of the day, Clara broke the familiar silence between them. "Did you hear about the special event today, Ellie?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Ellie barely glanced up from organizing her cleaning supplies. "What event?" "A worker appreciation charity dinner," Clara explained, smoothing out a wrinkle in the bedsheets. "It's supposed to align with the Labor Day celebrations. They're calling it Dignity and Labor or something like that." Ellie let out a dry chuckle. "Dignity and labor? That's rich, coming from management." Clara hesitated before nodding. I know. But maybe this time it'll actually mean something. They say it's about recognizing workers and promoting fair treatment." Ellie's expression softened at her friend's optimism, but her voice remained edged with reality. "You remember last year, Clara? They put on the same kind of show. We didn't get so much as a thank you card, just a few nice speeches before they went back to ignoring us." Clara sighed, conceding the point. "You're right, but I guess I can't help hoping." As they continued their work, Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "You know what I heard? Richard Hensley, the owner, he's obsessed with getting the hotel upgraded from 4 stars to 5. Maybe that's why he's suddenly so invested in all this." Ellie paused mid-wipe, raising an eyebrow. "And you think that means better pay for us?" Clara shrugged, hopeful. "It could, right? A higher rating means more money coming in." Ellie just shook her head, a weary smile playing on her lips. "Oh, Clara. When we went from 3 stars to 4, you know what we got? A tiny cost of living adjustment. No bonuses, no recognition, just more work and higher expectations." Clara's shoulders slumped slightly before she straightened again. "Well, either way, we've got to do our best. There are some big names staying here this weekend, local influencers, even a few celebrities. And rumor has it Mr. Hensley himself is inspecting rooms today." Ellie nodded, her professional pride shining through despite her skepticism. "Then we better make sure these rooms are spotless." She hesitated, then admitted, "Clara, would you mind double-checking my work? These old eyes aren't as sharp as they used to be, but I'll be damned if I let my standards slip." Clara smiled warmly. "Of course, Ellie. You know I've always got your back." Their rhythm was effortless. Years of working side by side had built an unspoken understanding between them. The long hours and demanding work were made bearable by their camaraderie. As they pushed their cleaning cart down the hallway toward their next assignment, something in the air shifted, a tension neither could quite place. Stopping outside the suite, Ellie slid the keycard into the slot. The door swung open, and both women froze. The scene before them was pure chaos. The remains of an all-night party littered the room, confetti and glitter crunched under their shoes as they stepped inside. Empty bottles were strewn across every surface, some dangerously close to toppling over. The stale scent of spilled liquor and sweat hung in the air. Clara let out a low whistle. Well, someone had a hell of a night. Ellie shook her head, scanning the mess. Let's get to work. But before they could even start, footsteps echoed in the hallway. And then, a voice. Arrogant. Sharp. Unmistakable. It was Richard Hensley. And he was headed straight for them. What happened next would change everything. As Ellie stepped into the chaotic suite, her eyes widened in disbelief. The once luxurious room looked like it had been hit by a hurricane, food and drink stains smeared across nearly every surface, glitter clinging to the plush sofa, even speckling the ornate wallpaper. The air was thick with the stench of alcohol, mingled with something unidentifiable that made her wrinkle her nose. "Looks like a tornado hit this place," Ellie muttered, her voice laced with both exhaustion and resignation. Moving deeper into the room, the full extent of the disaster became clear. Clothes were thrown haphazardly across the floor, bedsheets twisted into a tangled mess, and empty bottles rolled under furniture like discarded afterthoughts. But it was the bathroom that truly took their breath away. Clara peeked inside first, and immediately recoiled. "Oh my God," she gasped. Ellie joined her at the doorway and immediately understood her reaction. Soap scum coated the mirrors and walls in a grimy film, dulling what were once gleaming surfaces. Water pooled on the marble floor, forming dangerous puddles, and the toilet, well, it was best left undescribed. Despite the sheer mess before them, Ellie and Clara exchanged a look of silent understanding. This wasn't their first disaster zone, and it certainly wouldn't be their last. Ellie exhaled, a wry smirk forming. "At least we won't be bored today." Clara let out a breathy chuckle, grateful for Ellie's ability to find humor even in the most overwhelming situations. "I'd love to know what kind of guests left this mess." Ellie shook her head as she began stripping the bed. "Probably some young hotshots who think they're too important to clean up after themselves. You know the type." With that, they got to work. Years of experience had refined their rhythm. Clara tackled the bathroom, steeling herself with an arsenal of cleaning supplies, while Ellie restored order to the bedroom, her practiced hands making quick work of the chaos. Time slipped away as they worked tirelessly, restoring dignity to the once elegant suite. Ellie had just finished smoothing out the last wrinkle on the freshly made bed when a sharp sound from the doorway made her freeze. A throat cleared, loud, authoritative, demanding. Slowly, Ellie turned. Her heart sank. Standing in the doorway, his presence thick with tension, was Richard Hensley, the hotel owner himself. Ellie instinctively straightened, offering a respectful but composed greeting. "Good morning, Mr. Hensley." From the bathroom doorway, Clara hurriedly stepped out, her posture stiff with nerves. "Mr. Hensley, sir," she said quickly, bowing slightly in deference. Mr. Hensley's sharp gaze settled on Ellie, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Miss Jackson," he said, his tone cold and cutting. "I see you've forgotten how to properly greet your superiors. You should bow, like Miss Mitchell here." A slow, burning heat crept up Ellie's neck, not from shame, but from the quiet rage she forced herself to swallow. She had worked in this hotel for over a decade, always with professionalism, always with pride. And yet, here she was, expected to bow like a servant in some old-world fantasy. Still, she forced herself to comply. Her aging joints protested as she attempted to bow, her body aching in more ways than one. "I apologize, Mr. Hensley," she said, keeping her voice steady, even as the weight of the moment pressed down on her. But Mr. Hensley merely sneered. "Never mind," he scoffed. "You can't even do that properly." Ellie straightened, locking away the sting of humiliation behind a practiced mask of composure. She had endured worse. She would endure this too. Hensley stepped further into the room, scanning the half-cleaned space with growing irritation. His expression darkened as he took in the lingering signs of last night's debauchery. "What is the meaning of this?" he snapped, his voice rising. "Why isn't this room spotless? We have VIP guests arriving today." Ellie took a measured breath before responding. "Sir, we only just started." The room was in. "Excuses," Hensley cut her off, his anger sharpening like a blade. "I don't want to hear excuses from you, Miss Jackson. Your age is clearly slowing you down. Maybe it's time we reconsider whether you're still fit for this job." A beat of silence. Ellie felt the air shift, the weight of the insult pressing down on her chest. Before she could respond, Clara stepped forward, her voice firm despite the nerves flickering across her face. "Mr. Hensley, please, Ellie and I work well together. If we have just a little more time." But Hensley's attention had already shifted. His sharp, scornful expression softened in an instant as his gaze settled on Clara. And then, like a switch flipping, a smirk curved his lips. His tone, once harsh and biting, dripped with something else entirely. Now, Miss Mitchell," he purred, his voice taking on an unsettling charm. "No need to get all worked up. What happened next would change everything." And what Hensley didn't realize was that he wasn't alone. Because inside one of the nearby stalls, completely unnoticed, a Hollywood A-lister was listening to every word. And he wasn't about to stay silent. Mr. Hensley's eyes flicked between the two women, his lips curling into a smirk that sent a chill down Ellie's spine. "Someone as young and pretty as you, Miss Mitchell, deserves a better partner than, well, this old woman," he mused, pausing as if savoring his own words. Then, as if struck by sudden inspiration, he added, "In fact, I think it's time for a change. You two have worked together for far too long. Familiarity breeds gossip, inefficiency. We can't have that." Clara's face fell. "But sir, I enjoy working with Ellie. We've been partners for years." "Enough," Hensley's voice cut through the room like a blade. "My decision is final. Miss Jackson, you will report to my office immediately. Miss Mitchell, you will be assigned a new partner. Now, get back to work." And just like that, he turned on his heel and strode out of the room, leaving behind a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. Ellie and Clara exchanged a look, disbelief, sorrow, and an unspoken understanding passing between them. As Ellie moved toward the door, Clara mouthed a silent "I'm sorry." Ellie responded with a slow nod and a deep blink. There was nothing to be sorry for. They both knew exactly what had just happened. And it had nothing to do with efficiency. The walk to judgment. Ellie followed Mr. Hensley through the winding corridors of the Orchid Regency, each step heavier than the last. The plush carpet that once felt like a luxury beneath her feet now felt like it was trying to swallow her whole, as if warning her to turn back. The opulence of the hotel surrounded her, gilded mirrors, crystal chandeliers, art pieces worth more than her annual salary. And yet, despite dedicating years of her life to keeping this place spotless, she had never truly belonged. As they approached Mr. Hensley's office, Ellie couldn't help but notice the stark contrast. The warmth and grandeur of the hotel's public areas disappeared the moment they reached his domain. The heavy wooden door, the cold, foreboding atmosphere, this wasn't a place of hospitality. This was where decisions were made. Decisions that could end careers. Hensley pushed open the door without a glance back, stepping inside with the air of a man who enjoyed wielding power. The office was a shrine to his own importance. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a panoramic view of the city, the morning light casting long shadows across the room. A massive mahogany desk dominated the space, flanked by shelves lined with expensive books that Ellie suspected had never been read. Hensley sank into his high-backed leather chair, the creak of the material the only sound in the room. Ellie stood before him, acutely aware of the power imbalance. She waited for an invitation to sit. It never came. A deliberate humiliation. Hensley steepled his fingers, his gaze settling on her like a predator sizing up its prey. "Miss Jackson," he began, his voice laced with a false concern that failed to mask the disdain in his eyes. "I've been reviewing your performance, and I'm afraid we need to make some changes." Ellie's heart clenched, but she willed her face to remain impassive. She had faced adversity before. She would not let this man see her falter. "What kind of changes, sir?" she asked, her voice even despite the dread settling in her stomach. Hensley leaned back, exhaling as if he were about to do her a great favor. "Effective immediately, you will no longer be assigned to room cleaning duties. Instead, you will be reassigned to janitorial work in the public restrooms." The words hit like a physical blow. Ellie had spent years perfecting her craft, taking pride in the immaculate rooms she left behind. Being demoted to scrubbing public toilets wasn't just a reassignment, it was an erasure of her dedication, her skill, her very presence in this hotel. She inhaled sharply. "Sir, I've always received excellent reviews for my work." "I don't understand." Miss Jackson, Hensley interrupted with a dismissive wave of his hand. His voice was thick with false sympathy, but his eyes gleamed with something cruel. "And then," he said it, "you must understand, it would be inappropriate for hotel guests to see someone like you cleaning the rooms." Silence. The room felt like it had lost all its air. Ellie's body stiffened. "Someone like me," she repeated slowly. Hensley sighed dramatically, as if she were forcing him to state the obvious. "We want our housekeeping staff to reflect the face of the hotel," he said smoothly. "Young people. Bright smiles. Lively spirits. You, Miss Jackson, well, you're not exactly the image we wish to project." Ellie's fingers curled into fists at her sides. But he wasn't done. "Did you know," he continued, as if discussing hotel renovations rather than a human being's livelihood, "that elderly people tend to leave unpleasant odors? It's not your fault, of course, but we must consider the comfort of our guests." For a moment, Ellie could only stare. The casual cruelty, the blatant racism, the unapologetic ageism. It wasn't even masked. It wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It was said to her face. And in that moment, standing in the center of that lavish office, Ellie had a choice. She could swallow the humiliation, accept the demotion, nod and thank this man for allowing her to keep even the lowest position in his hotel. Or she could remind him who she was and what he had just done. What happened next would not only shake the walls of the Orchid Regency, but expose the truth behind them. And what Mr. Hensley failed to realize: he wasn't the only one in that office. Someone else had been listening. And he wasn't about to stay silent. The breaking point. Mr. Hensley's patience snapped like a brittle thread, his thin veneer of politeness crumbling to reveal the ugliness beneath. "This is exactly why you don't belong in hotel rooms anymore, Miss Jackson," he spat, his voice sharp with unmasked contempt. "Your attitude. Your inability to accept constructive criticism. The public restrooms suit your look more." Ellie felt the words strike her like physical blows. Each syllable chipped away at the dignity she had spent a lifetime building. Hensley leaned forward, his voice softening, not out of kindness, but to twist the knife deeper. "Look, Miss Jackson, you should be grateful. Many hotels wouldn't even keep someone like you on staff. But we recognize the value of cheap labor." The words hung in the air like a foul stench. The public restrooms need constant attention. And frankly, it's a job better suited for someone of your background. The meaning was crystal clear. Ellie's years of loyalty, her impeccable work ethic, her flawless record, it all meant nothing. In his eyes, she was nothing more than a disposable cog. "You will report to your new supervisor, Cass, at the lobby restrooms," Hensley continued, already turning his attention back to the paperwork on his desk. "She'll show you the ropes. That's all, Miss Jackson. You're dismissed." For a long moment, Ellie didn't move. Her mind reeled. Part of her wanted to fight, to shout, to demand justice, to make him see the injustice of it all. But another part of her, the part that had survived all these years, knew better. Fighting would get her nowhere. So, with a slow nod, she turned and left. The walk of exile. As Ellie closed the office door behind her, she leaned against the wall, inhaling deeply, trying to steady herself. The hallway stretched before her, longer, colder, heavier than ever before. She had entered that office a respected member of the housekeeping staff. She had walked out feeling erased, but not broken. Squaring her shoulders, she lifted her chin. She wasn't done. Ellie's descent to the ground floor felt like a journey into exile. Each step down the marble staircase echoed in her bones, reverberating with the weight of her demotion. Her mind was a whirlwind, anger, humiliation, disbelief, all colliding as she tried to process the upheaval of her life in mere minutes. Memories flickered through her mind. Her first day at the Orchid Regency, standing in the grand lobby, so proud to have earned a place in such a prestigious hotel. The countless rooms she had cleaned, the meticulous attention she had given to every corner, every crease, every speck of dust. The satisfaction of hearing a guest marvel at the spotless perfection of their suite. The record of 0 complaints, once a badge of honor, now rendered meaningless in the face of one man's prejudice. As she stepped into the grand hotel lobby, its opulence seemed to mock her. The gleaming chandeliers, the polished marble floors, the luxurious furnishings. She had helped preserve this world. And now, it was pushing her to the margins. The new reality. Ellie scanned the area, searching for her new supervisor. Near the janitor's closet, a middle-aged woman leaned against the door, absent-mindedly picking at her nails. She barely looked up as Ellie approached. "You must be Elena," the woman said, not bothering to stand upright, not offering a handshake, not even attempting to pretend she cared. "Ellie," she corrected quietly. The woman shrugged. "Right. Cass. Hensley said you'd be coming." Ellie forced herself to keep her expression neutral. "I'm to report to you for my new assignment." Cass let out a dismissive huff. Right. Public restrooms. Not much to it, really. Cleaning supplies are in there," she said, jerking a thumb toward the closet behind her. "Mops. Buckets. All that jazz. You'll need to check the restrooms every hour. More if it's busy. Keep it dry. Make sure it doesn't stink. Any questions?" The abruptness of it all, the dismissive tone, the lack of instruction, left Ellie feeling adrift. She had so many questions. So many concerns. But Cass's body language made one thing clear: she didn't care. Ellie swallowed. "I suppose not." Cass gave a lazy nod. "Great. Then figure it out yourself. I've got other things to do." And with that, she walked away, leaving Ellie standing alone. For a moment, she just stood there, more lost than she had been in years. Then, with a deep breath, she opened the closet door and began gathering the supplies she would need. A different kind of stairs. As Ellie pushed her new cleaning cart toward the women's restroom, she noticed something immediately. People looked at her differently now. When she had been in housekeeping, guests had mostly ignored her. She had been part of the hotel's background, invisible yet essential. Now, as she moved through the public space with her janitor's cart, she felt the eyes. Curious glances. Some pitying. Some disdainful. Some disgusted. As if, in mere minutes, she had transformed from a skilled worker to something lesser. The women's restroom door loomed ahead. The final confirmation of her fall from grace. But as she reached for the handle, something inside her shifted. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. And what neither Cass nor Mr. Hensley knew was that someone had seen it all, and that someone was about to change everything. Ellie's demotion and unfair treatment. After years of dedicated service at the Orchid Regency Hotel, Ellie Jackson was abruptly demoted from housekeeping to janitorial work, not due to performance, but because of her age and race. The move was humiliating, but Ellie, ever resilient, refused to let it break her. The reality of her new role was harsh, physically demanding, and emotionally exhausting. As she cleaned the public restrooms, she overheard chatter about an upcoming charity event celebrating workers' rights, a cruel irony given her treatment that very day. During a routine cleaning of the men's restroom, Ellie unexpectedly encountered Mr. Hensley, the hotel owner, rehearsing a speech about dignity in labor. The bitter hypocrisy wasn't lost on her. But before she could leave, an accident, a puddle left by another worker, soaked Hensley's expensive blazer. Furious, he unfairly blamed Ellie, humiliated her, and in a final act of cruelty, threw a bucket of dirty water on her. The unexpected witness. Just as Ellie stood there, drenched and humiliated, a stall door opened, and out stepped Johnny Depp. Having overheard everything, he pieced the situation together instantly. When Hensley noticed Depp, his demeanor completely changed, switching from rage to fake politeness. But Depp wasn't fooled. Later, at the hotel's charity gala, Hensley was set to deliver his speech about respecting workers. But Johnny Depp took the stage first, exposing the owner's hypocrisy to the entire audience. He then invited Ellie on stage, giving her the platform to share her experience. Ellie, hesitant at first, found her voice. She revealed the truth, her demotion, the discrimination, and the abuse she endured. The audience was stunned. High-profile guests walked out in protest, and Hensley, realizing his reputation was collapsing, tried to save face by offering Ellie her old job back. A new beginning. But Ellie refused. With her fellow workers standing by her side, she resigned, as did her entire team, leaving Hensley scrambling. As they walked away from the hotel that had mistreated them for years, Johnny Depp had one last surprise. He had arranged job interviews at a new hotel where they would be valued and respected. Ellie and her colleagues left, heads held high, stepping into a new future, one where they finally had control over their own dignity. And as they walked away together, Ellie knew this wasn't just an ending. It was a new beginning.